How much money do you spend on food yearly? Do you own a business?
But some other weird questions were probably like asking whether or not I had a farm, which was pretty weird.
These are just some of the questions you'll find on the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. In simplest terms, the FAFSA is an application that students fill out to be approved for federal aid or loans for college. Millions of students apply to college each year, and they are thinking of ways to pay for it. Many decide between taking out loans or borrowing money from their family. The average cost for in-state college tuition in New York is about $20,000 a year. These prices make college inaccessible to low-income students unless they receive aid. And to receive aid, you have to fill out the FAFSA. But the FAFSA is a very long and confusing process. This form that is supposed to help students like me access college can become a barrier. As a soon-to-be high school senior, all of this is in the forefront of my mind. How will I pay for college when I get there? It's a conversation I have with my dad a lot.
Baba, I'm to college যাব না?
I'm going to college, right? In about 1 year. I feel very anxious and nervous thinking about it right now. If I go to college in Pennsylvania, I need to get a place to live, and maybe a car will be needed. Also, I have to pay for the school. Thinking about all this makes me nervous. Don't you have me? Don't be so stressed about it. I'm right here. Don't stress about it so much. Let's see what happens. Don't worry. Allah will help us. In this episode, you'll hear more about the FAFSA than you probably ever wanted to know, and how increased resources and support can make the financial aid process work better for students like me. I'm Nusrat-Uddin, a junior at Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics. You're listening to the Miseducation Podcast, Season 7, Questioning the Status Quo. This is the FAFSA Frustration. The FAFSA has more than 150 questions that determine if you qualify for financial aid. It can be especially difficult when students have to fill it out for their parents and are not provided with the proper educational resources. A survey done by EAB, the Education Advisory Board, tells us that about 30% of low-income and first-generation college students say they struggled filling out the application. Simply put, if you don't fill out the FAFSA correctly, good luck getting financial aid. A clip from the CNBC News explains what the FAFSA is, and they make it sound easy.
If you want to get financial aid, the best way to do it is to fill out this form and make sure that it's accurate and that you filled it out properly so that states, colleges, as well as the federal government can use it to give you the aid that you need.
But what does that really mean? Is it that simple to just fill out the form? High school seniors tell us otherwise. Meet Jada, a senior at the Young Women's Leadership School of Queens.
I was honestly scared because I asked my mom for her IRS information, her login, and she was laying in her bed, and then she put her password in.
She's talking about a tool that connects all of your financial information from your tax papers to the FAFSA application, but she came across a problem.
It didn't work the first time, it didn't work the second time, and then the third time, I was like, do you remember your password? Because I was scared that I might get logged out.
Eventually, she found her password and was relieved. Thank goodness. But that wasn't the only thing she struggled with.
The Department of Education works constantly on making the FAFSA easy to follow and to complete. In fact, they indicate most students can complete the FAFSA in less than 30 minutes.
Not one sitting. They were lying about that. I did complete it in the night, but it wasn't one sitting because I had to go back and forth with my parents, and some of the information I personally had to fill out. But then most of the information was from my parents, and my parents were in 2 different locations, and they were kind of like stressed out with work and stuff like that.
Jada spent all night filling out the FAFSA, a long, drawn-out process. Tens of thousands of students feel overwhelmed by the FAFSA and wish they didn't have to fill it out. The questions confuse many students, and they generally look for help from their guidance counselors. I decided to speak to my counselor and see how she navigates assisting students.
Hi, I'm Rosa Chu. I'm the college advisor at Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics.
Booking this interview was a struggle because she was so busy with all the students, writing their letters of recommendation and answering questions.
So you work with students every day with the college process in FAFSA. So what is your typical workday like?
From 8 to about 3 o'clock. And then even more, once I get home, I got to answer emails from parents or students' emails. send out applications if I have a chance, that if I couldn't send it during the day and I have to send it, I send them from my home. So it's a long day. Pretty much I could be working at 9 or 10 o'clock, or whenever I have to do something, I'll do it.
That's her typical workday, doing work at home just so she can help students.
On a daily basis, I would say it depends, but I would say September, October, November, it's a really hectic time, and I can see from 50 to 70 students a day.
The counselor is there to advise. She isn't able to dedicate time to everyone.
I am here to help them, but ideally the financial aid process should be completed by the parents and the students. I would say that 20 to 30% is dedicated to financial aid. Besides completing the FAFSA, I do more of advising.
There's also the issue with figuring out if you're a dependent or not. The difference between the two is a dependent uses their parents' financial information, while an independent puts their own. Daniel is an independent. He is a student from my school who recently moved to the USA.
I told you I live with my sister and my parents are in DR, so it was a little bit complicated, but at the end, they just told me that I was considered independent.
His sister brought him over to the U.S. to live with her while his parents were still in the Dominican Republic. This made his living situation very confusing and hard to explain on the FAFSA.
I didn't have to put my parents' information, but they were asking too much, so yeah.
I would get rid of the parents portion because, a lot of times I've seen students who, while technically dependent, they're not. They're fully functional adults. They're living by themselves.
That's David Woods, a financial director at Bronx Community College. He oversees the application process and answers students' financial questions.
They're trying to pay for their own education on their own, and unfortunately, they just don't fall into any of the qualifying, sections that make them independent.
David explains how seeing students who are independent still having to fill out their parents' information is disheartening. After all, the FAFSA is looking at the amount of income your parents have, not if they're going to help you.
That's very unfortunate, and I'm limited in what I can do for them to help. And if they don't have their parents' information on the FAFSA, it's considered incomplete, even if they've signed it and moved forward. So that's one thing I would like to get rid of. If any student who said they don't talk to their parents, they're doing it by themselves, they should be able to apply for it by themselves, because if they're taking out loans, the loans are in their name, not their parents' name. They're taking the responsibility. So, that's just one thing I would definitely get rid of if I could.
But the application isn't looked at individually. There is a formula to it all. Woods explains the methodology and mathematics of it.
Yes, there is a formula. There's a standard formula. It's called federal methodology. It is a standard formula that the government uses for every student. So no one is treated differently. It's built into our network, our systems. We don't even have to do it. The system automatically does it.
Among other things, the formula is used to calculate a student's EFC,
which is your estimated family contribution. Now, the lower the EFC, that's good. That means you're basically going to receive more money. So if a student has an EFC of 0, they're saying you basically are eligible to all the money we can give you because your family doesn't make enough.
So this formula calculates how much your family can contribute, but doesn't actually consider additional extenuating circumstances affecting families, like medical expenses or bills. The FAFSA is a very tricky application. The people that look at your application see all of your personal information, but at the same time, they aren't the ones deciding. It's quite impersonal for a very personal process. Some people suggest using a financial advisor or someone who can do the form for you if you're struggling to complete the FAFSA. But that comes with a cost. And is it really accessible to all? Here we have Mr. Joseph Orsolini. He has a
firm, College Aid Planners. It's my business. Been doing college planning, specializing in college planning for just over 20 years now. So we help families through the financial aid process, how to make it cheaper, how to be able to afford it, how to find schools that are going to offer you money.
Joseph's job mainly consists of working with different families to help them with the college process, including the FAFSA.
I have families across the board that come to me. Some of them, the higher end folks are just kind of too lazy and don't want to do it. I don't mean to disparage them. Other folks on the lower end, they've got concerns, different situations, maybe a husband or spouse died, or, they're lower income. Really, across the board, people kind of need help.
I found out about his prices when I was trying to schedule this interview.
I work on a flat fee basis. My costs are pretty reasonable. I'm $350 for first-time family coming through.
When I tell you I was freaking out, I mean I started panicking and thinking they charged me for this meeting.
I'm $135 on a renewal. I'm basically about as much as you'd pay for a tax return, to H&R Block to get them to do your tax return. And, when you think about it, it's about the same bit of information. So, I know there's some other people out in this industry that charge a whole lot more or put you on retainers. I don't think that's really fair, and it kind of gives this industry a little bit of a bad reputation. So, a couple $100 is okay.
But not a lot of first-gen and low-income students can afford a couple $100. But there is some good news. Congress has passed the FAFSA Simplification Act. This law will reduce the number of questions you'll have to answer on the form, expand Pell Grant eligibility, and remove outdated restrictions to make federal student aid more accessible. But its implementation has been delayed. The U.S. Department of Education currently plans to implement the act fully by July 1st, 2024. These changes sound great, but fingers crossed that we get to see them take place. The big picture is this. Low-income and first-gen students deserve more support during the college application process. The Department of Education needs to invest way more in helping students navigate this process. For example, free workshops with one-on-one support that incorporate partnerships with the city and state universities of New York, increased online resources, and greater transparency about the process. Everyone's been asking me about my college choices, but all I'm thinking about is how I'm going to pay for it. Most students feel this way as well. We're all worried about how we're supposed to pay for college rather than being excited that we can get a higher education. My FAFSA journey is just beginning. My dad and I continue to reflect. Let's see what happens. All of this stress will amount to nothing. You have me, God willing, so what's the point of stressing so much?
ইনশাআল্লাহ আল্লাহ ভরসা
This episode was reported by me, Nusrat Uddin, with production and editing support from Lauren Vespoli, Melanie Bonilla, Sabrina Duquesne, Mira Gordon, and Taylor McGraw. Music from Blue Dot Sessions. Special thanks to Erica Wong and David Herman at Good Studio, as well as Hindenburg Systems. The Miseducation Podcast is a program of The Bell. Our work is made possible in part by the Pinkerton Foundation, the Summerfield Foundation, and FJC. You can learn more about our work and find all past episodes at bellvoices.org. If you're listening on a podcast app like Apple or Spotify, please drop us a quick rating and review. And don't forget to follow @MisEducationPod on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for listening.